Blog posts are the lowest risk and effort thing you can do to grow your business. Hi, my name is Luke Flaherty, and I'm the founder of Wave Consulting, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Party Wave podcast. Contrary to the name, we will not be talking about parties or waves today. Instead, we're going to be talking about blog posts. But first, I want to start off speaking a little bit about my life and how it may pertain to Wave Consulting, since we're hoping to be very involved in our local area. Some things of note from locally recently is last week, I went to check out the CoWorks co-working location on 16th or 17th Street here in Wilmington. And since they were having a free Friday, and I was very impressed by the place. I've actually heard a lot about it, so I'm glad I got over there. And the only thing I regret about going is not grabbing more donuts. Didn't meet too many people. It was a little bit empty, but still nice to go see what it was about. The second thing is, surprise, surprise, I've been playing pickleball lately with some friends after work. And I went out there last night, and there's a guy out there from Air Media recording things to do in Hanover County besides go to the beach, a short production type of thing. And it got me thinking because I've been looking to launch a videography service here at Wave Consulting. So it was cool to see what that could look like actually in process. Anyways, blog posts, let's jump into this. The overview of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about the four main business benefits you get from writing a blog, some common misconceptions about what a blog is, what it looks like, an example of a non-traditional blog. So if you're kind of thinking those misconceptions, what it could actually look like for you. And say you're not in a real estate like we're going to talk about for that non-traditional blog example, and you don't like any of the blog ideas you've seen online. How can you figure out what to blog about? I'll give you the framework that we use to help our clients decide what they should write about, and some other ideas in case that's not really working for you. We're going to talk about the importance of a content backlog and a guide for reusing content as it pertains to blog posts and some others. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to jump into are the four business benefits of blog posts that we describe to our clients when we're talking about blog posts, and why you should do them, why you should look into them. So I'll list them out. The first we'd like to talk about is brand awareness, also brand authority. You get SEO benefits for your entire site, not just your blog posts. And the last would be your content backlog, right? Sorry, it was blanking there. So we'll jump right in with the brand awareness and brand authority. As it pertains to brand awareness, some things that are pretty obvious, right? You get broader reach by creating more content, and it could help attract a wider audience if done right. Also we get search engine visibility. That's where these kind of cross over together. With SEO, if you're writing the right kind of blog posts and you're writing them the right way, you can improve awareness. More people know about you. Blogs can also be shared. So if your client base likes your blog posts, that's who you should be writing for. Then they can share them and increases your reach and kind of helps with referrals without actually being referrals, right? The engagement among your customers, customer success team. It's an easy way to get started on that client success. If you don't have a customer success team, don't have the resources to address a lot of it, it's a good way of engaging with that customer base. When you don't like to send out mass emails and communicate with that list, or you just don't have the team to kind of ensure the products are being used and keep LTV high. Also, lead conversion is kind of stemming from brand awareness. I like to mention it here, just as, when you have a lead, things can get lost between the lines. You're engaging with a lot of people over a long period of time. Blog posts can help nurture these leads over time without you having to do anything, right? With the proper integration into your email marketing and whatnot. Going into brand authority, this is my favorite part of business benefits from blogs, right? This is where I think most businesses get the most bang for their buck. It's a tough sell though sometimes because there's not a direct line to ROI, but I believe it underlies a lot of the increase in revenue that we see from blog posts, right? So brand authority kind of stems from what you might be thinking, kind of positioning yourself as an expert in your industry. So if you're a business in kind of in a science field, right? You're a regulatory science field. Positioning yourself as an expert can be pretty important, right? We see this in consulting as well. Pushing valuable content and value add content helps you position yourself as an expert in your industry. That just is what it is. And building trust that way, right? By positioning yourself as that expert, you build trust among your audience of clients and not yet clients, right? But you have to do so with high quality information. And that gets to some points we'll touch on a little bit later, maybe. It's kind of a given I like to think of, but high quality content is so important in the kind of age of AI and everything. Making sure that you're investing in making sure these blog posts are as high quality as they can is important, right? You can't position yourself as an expert if you're not being the expert. Enhancing your credibility is part of that, right? It goes along with it. That it makes a lot of sense when you start talking about how your clients perceive your business, right? They're comparing businesses together and against each other all the time from price point, and price point isn't something that you can always go to bat on, right? And so you can go to bat in other areas like brand authority. That's where this really comes into play. It helps you stand out among your competitors. Just imagine a world where you're trying to make a decision between two different companies that you need their insight, right? How do you determine who has the best insight? We get asked all the time for more information about these offerings, and if that information is available, these questions, these obstacles, objections get overcome before that customer even steps in the door. So upping that chance is always worth the investment. I feel like that kind of wraps up the brand authority and brand awareness. So let's jump into kind of a brief overview of SEO. It's kind of a huge topic. I won't get too in depth. We're actually releasing a lot of materials this week. Our SEO SOPs, so our standard operating procedures for operating SEO. After talking with a lot of clients of ours and potential clients, there's a lot of confusion around SEO, right? That's why you're looking to work with somebody like ourselves who's doing SEO things. It's just a confusing space to be in, right? And so we're hoping to help that a little bit at least for our potential clients, where if we release our standard operating procedures and everything that we do when we're onboarded to a project, the people that would like to work with us or like to understand more about it can help themselves to the information. And if working with us is not in the cards, as long as they have that information, they're able to get those results that they need, answer those questions that they have, that's all that matters to us, right? So SEO in terms of blog posts, one of the main reasons to maintain a blog is for SEO, right? That's why it's such a popular thing. It can help your website rank higher in search engine results when you're using Google Ads with the SERPs, right? SERPs, making it easier to rank higher with deeper content structures and sitemaps. You get things like internal linking when you're doing blog posts. You get to build that link depth for your pages that are important, like your services page, your contacts page, other things that might be important to your business. By writing blog posts and linking back to that when relevant, right? It helps build that content depth when Google's things are searching and crawling your websites. Literally updating the blog as well is something that signals to Google's search engines that your site is active and relevant. So if you don't have a blog, regularly updating your site is a little bit different, right? And so having fresh content plays a big role in SEO for sure. And we see, I thought I would go in depth a little bit, not too much. And I said I wouldn't go too in depth, but into the two different types of sites we see most often, that being WordPress and Webflow sites. If you're just getting started with your site on WordPress, which is what we see most often, you're likely using Yoast. And if you are, then you basically just want to make sure that the SEO is as green as possible. If you're on the free tier, it is possible, I promise you. It might not be the most intuitive thing ever, but as long as you are checking off those meta descriptions, making sure your alt tags and image descriptions are all in place, That's always good, and it'll show you what you need. Oftentimes there's a lot of internal and external links you need to make sure you're doing, and content length. The readability score is also something very good that Yoast supplies, so it's good to check that off as well while you're in there. Webflow is where we particularly do most of our work, most of our web development, no code web development lives, right? And the approach is slightly different, but the principles do remain the same, where you're customizing meta tags pretty much to the highest extent you can. Webflow actually offers something pretty unique, like and WordPress offers this just in a different plugin that I can't think of, but schema markup is important in Webflow sites. If you haven't heard of schema markup, that essentially just helps search engines understand your content structure a little bit better. And this potentially can lead to you getting those rich snippets, we like to call them, at the top of the Google search, where it isn't just a link to your site, but a link to the helpful information within your site, right? And so getting those schema markups is super good and comes right out of the box in Webflow sites. So that's nice. So meta tags, schema markup, alt text for images, and making sure your site loads quickly is important. And we see a lot of people ask, how do I test this? How do I know how my site's loading and where it should be, right? We use GT metrics if you're looking for a tool specific, but it is good enough to just right click and inspect that page and run that lighthouse test, right? And your performance, if you haven't put any work into Webflow or WordPress speed performance optimization, then your performance score will likely be 50s, 60s, which that is not a big deal. That is just the Lighthouse score, and Lighthouse provides a good list of things to do. It can be a little complex, but it's well documented. So anytime you have a question, just grab that from the Lighthouse test results, throw that into Google. That's exactly what we're going to do. If you ask us about site speed optimization right out of the box, we're just going to run that Lighthouse test for you, send that over off the bat before you get into some more of the complex issues, right? If you're really looking to decrease that site speed in more competitive fields like e-commerce and whatnot. So we've covered brand awareness, brand authority, and SEO. That fourth one that I couldn't remember at the beginning is building a content backlog. And so I mean this in a few different ways. And the first of which is being a resource library, which is, the blog post's ability to serve as resources for your potential customers, your potential clients, and addressing these concerns that you may get, first asked by your potential customers, and any concerns that you want to overcome before you even get them on the phone. These blog posts can preemptively solve those, right? Like FAQs is a good way to do that, and I don't mean just the drop-down FAQs. Having blog posts that answer these questions in depth with examples and walkthroughs is great and has super high value return. And you only need to create once, right? When processes update as well. Case studies and educational content, right? So we have FAQs, case studies, and educational content are all good to have in your resource library of blog posts where you're building that content backlog. And having this content in the form of blog posts, you can link back to in your other outreach, things like newsletters and email marketing, increasing those backlinks and building that internal linking circle as well. The other definition I mean of a content backlog is this copy, these images, these examples, these case studies that you will need for your ad creatives when you're running ads, your short form and long form videos, visual aids, just things to develop overviews on, and kind of guides walking through those videos. And newsletter links are huge. You're always going to be looking to put another button in your newsletter, right? And linking to your blog post for the month, for the week, is a super strong newsletter link. If you're linking towards those in there, we see a very high click-through rate on your own content. And social media posts, of course, you're generating just a backlog of these things, especially if you're combining the two, right? You're creating a backlog of your resource library. I think you're seeing it here, right? Off the top of your head, you can think of, an announcement post for your blog post and going in depth of each of the sections on your blog post. you can repurpose this content for multiple times. And if that is in your resource library, then it's more longevity, right, that you get for your content. You're answering the same question over and over again, but you have copy built out to answer it, right? So you're not starting from scratch, and just decreases the time investment each time that you go to reuse that content. So we covered brand awareness, brand authority, SEO, and building a content backlog as helpful reasons for having a blog on your site. And I know I keep saying the word blog, and part of me doesn't even really like that word, right? Because there's a lot of misconceptions with it, where, you think blogs are outdated. Blogs are just, like news sites. Or I used to keep a blog back in, I'm blogging about my day-to-day life. I went to the coffee shop. And just to kind of clear up a few of those misconceptions, I want to stop off on the thought of blogs are outdated, because I totally see where you're coming from. And, I had the same frame of mind, and blogs can be tedious to keep up with, and kind of a dated idea to have. But kind of contrary to that belief, we see a very, like I said, high return on blog posts, and engagement with that content is always super high. It's often the highest out of any content on your site, besides the contact page, right? And so that being said, they're still a crucial component of a website in this day and age, and is the signal of a strong digital marketing strategy for a business. And it, is a solid foundation for expanding those efforts. If you're looking to expand across different marketing strategies across other domains like email and content, as well as digital, then blog posts are still a great place to start. Because like I said, this goes back to those 4 business ads. SEO benefits are more relevant than ever with blog posts, right? That search engine process updates every once in a while, and more than ever, blog posts are being pulled from to create these AI generated answers. And that being said, right, when these search engines go in that direction, and that's what we're already seeing, right, with Google's AI recommendations and other things like Perplexity, blog posts is what things are being pulled from, whether that be from sharing those blog posts on other sites. We've seen search engines crawl through searches, go through Reddit threads, and go to the links within those Reddit threads and pull information from the blog post there. We've seen that happen. And so that complex SEO just what hasn't been around. And so that being said, blogs are more relevant than ever today. What do blogs look like today? That being said, blogs have been around for a long time. They've updated a lot, right? So blogs can look like a number of things. They can look like news sections. They can be just blog. They can be resources, we've seen. For real estate, they can be location highlights, like your districts or counties. They can be educational content that doesn't change, right? They can be static content on your site that doesn't get added to over time. We do think it's important to update those dates on that content if you're going to go that route. Case studies, every time you have a client success, right? Every time that client renews, talk about a client signing on. Testimonials even serve as a good blog post sometimes if you don't want to go down the more traditional route. So blog posts can look like a number of different things. So even when I'm saying the word blog and talking about blog posts, I want you to keep your mind open about what I'm talking about. And I think it might help if we jump into an example. And I would love to give an example of what a non-traditional blog would look like for a real estate company. And we touched on this a second ago, actually. I think this is super cool. The point for a real estate company to have a blog is it's hard to see the ROI, right? That's what we hear a lot from the real estate companies that we're looking to help out with the blog. It's hard to see the ROI because, are people going to blog posts and buying a home? That's a hard question to answer because there's some gray area there, right? You're looking at what's the point for a real estate company to write a blog. You're looking at just producing high quality content, answering questions, supporting your buyers before they're your buyers. We see this with personalization being out and relevancy being in. Users aren't looking for you to scrape their data and creep them out on the internet anymore with their first, last, and middle name. They're looking for content that is valuable to them and adding to their life in a relevant way. And so by having a blog that follows the values of your company, you're able to do this, right? And so covering things for real estate companies like market trends, spotlighting neighborhoods we see, home buying tips, and even showcasing properties in blogs, if you get the permission to, are all great things that can be used as a blog in a non-traditional sense, and keep attracting potential buyers and sellers, and even to keep existing clients engaged over time. Like I said, right, when you're struggling to put together some email outreach, you don't want to annoy your clients too much. This is a good non-invasive way to keep your clients and your audience engaged. And talking about non-traditional examples of blog posts within real estate companies, there's this one great example that comes to mind, and it kind of goes back to SEO in a way, where we had a real estate company look to outcompete their local area in SEO, right? They want to perform well for houses searched for in all these counties, and instead of trying to bid for the highest ranking in all the counties, they're able to save their ad spend and focus on outbidding in the most important areas. And instead, what we looked to do was obviously continue writing blog posts about things like market trends, neighborhood spotlights, but develop a backlog of blog posts that are updated continually among those things like communities, counties, districts, and everything that they service in their local area. We would create a post around that, answer questions about it, have images about it. And that way we're showing up in searches that aren't just homes for sale and we're answering things that potential home buyers may want to know, school districts and things like that, right? So we're able to get those SEO benefits there, and predict and answer and provide value is the huge thing that we're looking to do, right? And it's easy to do with the versatile content forms that we talked about. Blogs can come in, where you can include news sections to provide those market updates. Because say you don't want to have blog on your site, right? You can have a news section and then have a resources section where you talk about those different neighborhoods. And that was kind of the case, right? The client doesn't want to have blog on their site. It might not mesh with your brand. It might not mesh with your overview of how things will look. And so adhering to brand guidelines is a huge thing, and there is an answer for that in blog posts, and kind of keeping it versatile there and keeping it non-standard. I think that the takeaways from that are, that blog posts for real estate agencies can accomplish three things, right? They go back to that first business ad. They establish authority for your brand. They also boost SEO, and they just increase engagement among your existing clients, increasing that LTV potential, right? So consistent, high quality content in various formats. We see this time and time again, a lesson I have to keep learning. High quality content that's consistent in various formats does drive engagement across channels and therefore business growth. Say you're not in real estate, right? What does this have to do with you? You don't like that idea. That idea doesn't really mesh for your business. So how can you come up with what to blog about? That's a fantastic question, and it's a question we answer way too often, right? It's not always clear. It's clear you want the results, right? You want brand authority, you want brand awareness, you want SEO boosts, you want to build a content backlog, and a blog accomplishes that. But what do I write about, right? My favorite strategy to suggest in this instance is as follows, right? We're going to look to connect core values with your services. And it's this important that you do it on a piece of paper. So you take down a piece of paper, and on one side you write down the core values of your brand. This can be things like transparency, efficiency, automation. And then on the other side of the page, you write down your services. This can also be things like automation, things like, for us, blog posts, right? This can be your services. So you have your services and your core values on two sides of the paper, and you're going to draw lines and you're going to connect these two, right? And then that's your answer, right? Say you have a service where you do credit repair, right? And then your core value is transparency. You're going to write blog posts about transparency in taxes, transparency in credit repair. And if this goes along the same lines for things like the technology solutions, right? You offer solutions for CRMs, right? You optimize CRMs, but you also have innovation as one of your core values. you're going to write a blog post about innovation in CRM automation. Make.com has been huge recently. You'd write things about like that. That's our favorite framework to use. But if that isn't really working for you, if you aren't sure on your core values, might not have your core values defined, your services might be a little bit ambiguous, then you can always stick to the tried and true things. Like you have how-to guides, top 10 lists are doing great right now. Reaching out to your audience and getting some interest and pain points might be something you don't want to do, but is an easy way to identify what your audience cares about and therefore write about it. Industry trends and news might be a little bit overplayed, but if that fits your niche, if you're looking to really build nothing else but brand authority, industry trends and news is a great thing for you to report on, especially if you have the time to personalize each one of your blog posts with your specific insight. Industry trends and news is super powerful there. Frequently asked questions, creating posts based on questions that you get from customers, addressing the specific issues that you encounter with clients, that you see in your industry, other competitors encountering. Right? If you can provide answers to a question that your competitor stumbles on, you're definitely going to want to take that. You could even use terms like, you could use programs like Google Keyword Planner and Ahrefs, that's Ahrefs, to find the keywords for your site, find keywords that you want to rank for. You identify those keywords that also ideally have high search volume and low competition, and you create blog posts around those. If you're really looking to drive that SEO, that's a really good one. Competitor analysis, analyze what your competitors are blogging about, right? And you're just going to want to do it from your point of view. Internal resources is a big one that we believe in. We believe in providing as much value to customers as you can. And so leveraging the knowledge and experience of the members of your team, your peers, is a great thing to do. If you can interview experts in the space, if you don't feel comfortable providing that information yourself, that's also great. Great way to kind of grab credibility from others and reuse it for more brand authority. So I hope that makes sense for, what can I write about? We've answered what benefits you get from writing about a blog. And then now you want a blog. How do I know what to write about? We just answered that, right? We talked about how to connect your core values to your services. We talked about how to walkthroughs, top 10s, frequently asked questions, all those things that work well as blog posts. And so now we're going to move into building your content backlog and kind of pivot into that next section. So building your content backlog kind of piggybacks off of the back of talking about writing how-to guides, top 10 lists, audience interests, trends and news, keyword research. Building this content backlog works in a great way with that, where you can ensure consistency across your channels and quality across that consistency. So by having all this copy defined and all these things, you have top 10 lists, you have how-to guides, you have internal resources. You're able to ensure that you're able to stay consistent with your content across social channels and ensure you're able to provide quality across that consistency, right? So this is all about stress reduction, right? I think as much as anybody that content distribution is super hard and is a ton of work, right? And so reducing stress on the amount of work that takes to get out the content that you want to put out is high ROI, right? At the end of the day. So ensuring regular posting and the quality control that blog post and a backlog of content gives you is very valuable. Blog post translates into kind of what I mentioned at the beginning about branching out into a videography service. Blog posts are our most popular service, and we're hoping to branch that out as we see a huge connection with high quality video content. Right? If you're able to, and I mentioned that here because building a content backlog doesn't just exist in blog post form. This exists in video content form. You're going to want to diversify your content types. You're going to want to have a strong backlog in words and blog posts. You're going to want to have a strong backlog in images and infographics. But the most valuable content backlog you can have is video. High quality videos at that kind of cater to the same audience preferences that your blog posts cater to. And this is where you're really going to do your marketing campaigns, right? This is where you can do mini documentary series following the team. Diversify content types. Having that backlog of text information and video information is super strong. You're gonna want to also expand, for an audience engagement sake, right? It's a good first step to take to ensure consistent engagement with your audience to have a blog. But we all know the blog post only gets you so far in terms of engagement. And so while you're ensuring retention and increased contact through blog posts, if you're looking, the next step is engagement, right? And videos provide a more dynamic way of presenting information and therefore provide a better way of recording audience engagement. And this complements the detailed insights that you are offering in your blog posts with a visual element. And so if you can really cross those together, that's a great content backlog that you have, and you can continue to reference that information in totality. This kind of brings us to our last point, which is reusing content. I want to provide a few strategies for and talk about the purpose of reusing content, right? You might say, we put out a blog post, why do we want to also make a video on this topic, right? And that's because turning blog posts into things like scripts for videos, infographics, social media posts, etc. They reach different audience segments, right? And so by reaching different audience segments, you're able to keep more of your audience engaged. It's always going to be a percentage game, right? And so while you are building that backlog of information with blog posts, even just turning it into scripts to get to later down the road is a great thing to have set up in a process, and it's not too much of an effort thing to do, right? This does bring up some limitations, though. You want to make sure your brand message and brand imagery is consistent across these things. This can be a tough thing to nail down. Making sure that your video content, your voice is similar to the voice that you're using to write these blog posts. This is another reason that the whole AI tools and things for blog posts are not super efficient, because your brand voice gets lost, right? And it's all about extending the lifespan of that content. If your brand voice isn't consistent, then the lifespan is pretty short. No matter how many times you update that date, it's just not going to mesh with your overall content marketing strategy. And speaking of strategies, if we talk about strategies for reusing content, a lot of this is going to seem obvious, but it's just good to point out, right? You're building this backlog of copy and now video, or at least video ideas. You're going to want to do things like snippets on social media on text platforms. That's a big thing to target, especially with blog posts. You're able to break these down into the kind of information that you're already doing for video scripts into shorter snippets for social media platforms. Like Threads has super high ROI right now. Twitter for a different audience segment. Even Instagram stories and LinkedIn is huge as well. So breaking it down into different text types for those platforms is a really easy thing to do, right? You've already created the content, you're just repurposing it. So we have social media snippets, infographics, and slideshows. Your blog post should already be including things like lists and bullet points of topics. And so converting bullet points of topics and lists into appealing infographics and slideshows on Facebook and Instagram, right, is a big high ROI thing to do that takes little to no time. Your email newsletters, I mentioned this earlier, you're always going to be looking to add another button, add another link to drive more clicks across your open rate. Using blog excerpts, if you can get guest posts on your blog from other people, pulling in their insights and highlighting that in your newsletter, getting that click-through rate, super good thing to be able to do. Obviously, you're going to want to pair that in your CRM with segmenting that audience and enrolling them in an email marketing flow that targets that specific engagement. And my favorite thing to do to talk about when we're talking about blog posts, a lot of people roll up blog posts in the resource section of their website. If you're going to do this, I think having pre-recorded webinars and even investing in live sessions, whether that just be on a social media platform, we see a lot of your a lot of your customers, especially if you're in B2B, are going to join and jump into these live sessions to meet your team, to hear from you. And so if you can pre-record webinars as part of your resource strategy and provide live sessions that are then set into the webinars on your resources page as well, super strong, comprehensive way to approach that content marketing strategy, right? And you can use these blog posts as material for the webinars and even just do live Q&A sessions that kind of answer those FAQs that we talked about earlier. It's just a great way to reach your audience, engaging with them in real time and providing resources to your clients in real time can serve as a great brand awareness, brand authority boost for you. And when we're talking about those pre-recorded videos, it goes without saying that we're talking about serving them as lead magnets, right? And this is obviously up to your brand vision, right? But we like to make sure that pre-recorded content, those PDFs, are collecting at least the first name, at least an email, especially for those longer form things. If you have a good web development team, you should be able to play the video in the browser and offer a enticing download button. And upon download, then go ahead and request that email. That's a way better time, way higher converting time to request that email for the download if you allow them to have the value ahead of time. We just find some people are pushing back on providing that value before you capture the lead, right? But if you can get leadership behind providing that value before you capture the lead, the ROI on creating this content is so much higher. Right, and that's the main takeaway I'm hoping to give from this presentation, right? From this podcast, is providing value ahead of time in the form of blog posts is so low risk, so low investment, and so high reward. And I'm not just talking about providing blog posts once a month, right? I'm talking about continuous content that is relevant to your business and the services your businesses offer. That being said, that brings us to the end of what I wanted to cover today. I hope it could be somewhat helpful, and that I wasn't too bad of a podcast host for today. This was my first time doing anything like this, so I have no doubt it will be a little bit rough around the edges in some spots, but I hope to improve and continue to do this. I hope this is helpful, and I'll try to follow some of my own practices here and reuse this, and hopefully show up across other platforms. So until the next one, I hope this went well, and thanks for listening. Bye.